What do Wisconsin, economic development, Germany, and automobiles have in common? Perhaps more than you might think. And that's next this morning on For the Record. Good morning, I'm Neil Heinen. This coming week, a group of people from the University of Wisconsin, state government, business and civic leaders, and representatives of the German government and automobile industry will discuss an issue that could influence this state's economic and environmental future. The conference is called Reinventing the Industrial Heartland, Supply Chain Sustainability, and the New Automotive Industry. My guests this morning are Dr. Elizabeth Covington, who is the Executive Director of the UW-Madison European Studies Alliance, and UW Mechanical Engineering Professor Rolf Raetz. And thank you both very much for joining me this morning.
Good to be here.
The topic of this conference is so long, I'm not sure. We could spend a half an hour explaining all of the components of that. And I want to cover both the idea of the automobile industry and its future, and also why we're doing this in Madison and the role of the German government. But I'm going to start with you, Professor Raetz, if you would, and just help us understand sort of the state of engineering theory in terms of the automobile. I don't know how many people have any idea that it's still not the same Detroit that we've all sort of grown up with. From your perspective, what does the future look like?
Well, as you know, actually the EPA and various government agencies have had a big role in the last 5-10 years, insisting that the automotive industry essentially clean up its act. Engines are now, for example, much cleaner than they were a decade ago, and fuel efficiency is now really the main target. We want to address the issue of large imports of fuel, of oil in the United States, and look for alternatives that can get us around some of these difficulties.
Can you give us some examples, of the kind of research being done on the UW campus along this line?
Certainly. So I'm part of the Engine Research Center at the University of Wisconsin-Madison Mechanical Engineering Department. And we have basically a group of 7 faculty who work together, about 55 graduate students, masters and PhD students. We're funded by the automotive industry and also large diesel engine manufacturers to essentially look at advanced combustion strategies to try to improve engines for the future. So this is actually a long-term effort. The Engine Research Center was founded in 1946, so we've been around for a while. And that's because of the importance of the engine in our society. Essentially, we would come to a standstill without the engine. So if you look at the types of things that are going on right now, we're looking at combustion strategies that are going to revolutionize engines, much cleaner, much more fuel efficient. Of course, we're taking advantage of huge advances in computer technology that's going to be under the hood of these vehicles, integration with electric hybrids, for instance, and also advanced fuels. There's, of course, biofuels that are being integrated into vehicles. So there are many developments that make for incredible diversity of research activity within our center.
The word revolutionize is such a great word. It's just, it's an exciting word, but it suggests that there is a discovery yet to occur, that there's something that needs to happen, some catalyst to propel this forward. Is that true? What are we looking for right now?
Absolutely. I think the integration of electronics and combustion is something that offers us potential that we wouldn't have even dreamt of 10 years ago, for instance. So, those kinds of developments. Also, we're using tools to analyze engines that just didn't exist. Advanced computer modeling, making use of supercomputers. This type of thing is revealing strategies that, our brain wouldn't have thought of. We're using computers to try to analyze and invent the future.
Yeah. Elizabeth, we want to make it clear that the State of Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources and the new Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, what was Commerce, are partnering in this. But then what brings the UW European Studies Department into this discussion?
Well, the University of Wisconsin-Madison has a tremendous wealth of resources in European research and European research agencies. So the initiative for this particular conversation we're having today came out of our partnership with the American Council on Germany, which is a nonpartisan entity that's based in New York City but has been in existence since 1952 for promoting transatlantic dialogue, both in diplomacy and commerce. And that unit is housed at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in our Center for German and European Studies. So the impetus for this event came through our connection on campus with the American Council on Germany, which approached us and wanted to have a discussion about this incredible wealth of opportunities that might be possible for us in the automotive industry, in particular between Wisconsin and the nation of Germany.
Now, did that include a trip of about a year and a half ago that I know a group of business leaders and government officials went to Germany? I remember Art Barnard was someone who helped put that together. Art was on this show talking about that trip. Was that part of the genesis of this?
I believe that may have been a large part of it, but if we're going to speak about the wealth of Wisconsin-German connections on campus and in the local government here in Madison, we have to look everywhere because there are so many that it's almost impossible to keep track of them. We have strong relationships with...
Good point. I was thinking more of this specific conference,
specific
but
event
you're right.
Came through, sure, what's now called the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, and I believe an initiative that may have come out of the CALS Center on environmental sustainability projects. So.
I also had on this show within the last year Bill Drozniak, who is the head of the American Council on Germany. How would you characterize that relationship? It's an important one, right?
I would say that the ACG, as it's configured right now, is making a strong effort within its 19 chapters nationwide to foster relationships in very, very strong research universities that have practical research, applied research functions that can be made use of to promote local commerce and Wisconsin-German connections. Not just Germany, though, the European Union as a whole, because I think a lot of people forget right now, the conventional wisdom is that China, Asia in general, Japan, et cetera, Korea are where all of the economic activity is happening, but half of world GDP is still based in the U.S. and the EU member nations. So,
within the last 6 months, I think there was a big special section in the Wall Street Journal on Germany and on the potential for the German economy. And it's I mean, people watching the conversation about the Eurozone and what's going on in Europe know of Germany's role there. But the way I read it is that the German government is making a very proactive sort of, we need to look at expanding our markets, and we want to expand our global markets, which is opening up possibilities in North America and Wisconsin. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. And I would say that there are two things going on there. The Germans are looking for educated workforces in many of these arenas, and what we lack here in Wisconsin, maybe that they could help us with, is more well-developed knowledge about the export industry and how to do that effectively. Obviously, Germany is really one of the world's powerhouses with that right now. And what Germany wants from the U.S. is the ability to learn how applied research at R1 research universities can be used to do that economic development right there in the area where the universities are. So this is the reason why they're interested in Madison and Wisconsin in general.
Well, when we come back then, we're going to connect some more of the dots and we'll bring in the German automobile industry right after this. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week, there is a conference called the Reinventing the Industrial Heartland, Supply Chain Sustainability and the New Automotive Industry. We'll talk a little bit about an event on Friday that's open to the public if you're interested in this. But otherwise, this is a group of representatives from the state of Wisconsin, the Department of Natural Resources, and Commerce and the new Economic Development Corporation, who are working together with the University of Wisconsin and with some civic and business leaders to look at the potential for our region, our state, and the new automotive industry. We've talked about some of the technical aspects of this, Rolf, and we've talked about some of the relationships. And now I would like, if you would, to tell us what's going on in the German automotive industry that's of interest to you, that is of interest perhaps to the partners here in Wisconsin.
Right. Well, you know, in Europe in general, but Germany in particular, people are very concerned about greenhouse gases, CO2, and that really translates to fuel efficiency. So if you look at the German product, for example, the VW Jetta, it's the most fuel efficient car that we have in the United States. And what makes it fuel efficient is it runs with a diesel engine in an automotive vehicle. It is basically as good as and peppy and responsive as any gasoline engine that you might have locally, but it has that advantage of about a 20% improvement in fuel efficiency. So Germany is really a leader in that aspect. They have integrated some of the things I was talking about earlier, feedback controls, use of electronics under the hood, to create this extremely efficient vehicle that's clean. And you know, I think it's a trend that is definitely going to be adopted worldwide as people get more and more concerned about fuel efficiency. Of course, other automotive companies in Europe are following suit. You know, in France they have a very powerful industry. And generally, I think the drivers are fuel efficiency. That is something that most people recognize as being really essential to address for the future.
Do you know of examples of research done at the University of Wisconsin that's being applied in some of these areas?
Absolutely. In fact, we've had a program with Ford of Europe for the last 10 or 15 years. We also are part of a collaborative research lab that General Motors runs. They have one here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and another one that interacts with us at Aachen University in Germany. So it's an international activity. We attend international conferences together, we exchange information. Generally in Europe, though, as I mentioned, their focus is on diesel engines for automotive. 50% of the cars run on diesel engines. Here it's 2%. But we use diesel engines, obviously, in our trucking industry and off-road applications. And there's a lot of commonality in the technology.
I think for a lot of people watching this show, the idea of the automotive industry would evoke tremendous competition. I mean, it always has seemed like such a competitive industry with the United States competing against either Western European or Eastern automobile. Has that changed at all? Does that still exist, and does that play into this looking for new technology that's going to drive the car of the future? Yeah.
Well, you know, as the companies I mentioned are global companies, Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, and so on. So, and Fiat as part of Chrysler. So I think there's, if you want to look at where the future lies, you might start wondering about China, India, because these are up-and-coming countries. Their economies are developing. And maybe Europe sees them as a significant competitor. Europe makes more vehicles than any other area in the world as of today. But that could change significantly once China's economy develops to its full potential. So.
This particular conference, Elizabeth, is focusing really on the auto. I remember some early discussions that there were more components to it than just the auto industry. And it's kind of interesting there. But and I'm not conversant in this. I know you are. But the idea of, I think it's called Mittelstand. Is that right? The mid-sized businesses in Germany and this sustainable supply chain. I mean, is that still a piece of this in terms of what we can learn from Germany and why Germany might be interested in us?
Well, the focus of this particular conference is very definitely the automotive industry. I think if you just look at the export statistics for the state of Wisconsin, you'll see that Germany is the the fourth largest export market for Wisconsin products. And so I think that the American Council on Germany's focus may be for this particular event on autos. It in the future is looking at what's called the Mittelstand, the small and medium-sized enterprises, which affect all of the other great export markets that we have here in the state of Wisconsin, including medical machinery,
sure.
Other forms of industrial machinery, et cetera. So for them, the focus here is not just on automobiles, but on all kinds of productive partnerships in the future, which involve other aspects of our export community. It could be cereals as well.
Yeah. I mean, for all of our Rock County viewers, though,
right.
I mean, who remember when Janesville, when the auto industry was such a huge part of the Janesville economy, when it closed down, it wasn't just the people working at GM. It was those other businesses that supplied products
right.
to GM
mm-hmm.
that were affected by that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would assume that that is still an important part of the industry.
Well, what we mean by small and medium-sized enterprises is all of the corporations which produce small component parts of the engines that you're discussing earlier. And a lot of those industries are affected deeply by the loss of a plant in Janesville, et cetera. But a lot of them continue to export to foreign markets. So the American Council on Germany and German industry in general are still heavily involved in those industries here. We have a very, very significant direct foreign investment of German money in the state of Wisconsin right now, even with the auto industry having had severe troubles in the last 2 years. So I think they're looking to promote that base, which already exists, where there's an educated working group already that can be utilized to promote that export.
We're going to continue our conversation of the auto of the future when we come back on For the Record right after this. I'm back with Dr. Elizabeth Covington, the director of the executive director of the UW-Madison European Studies Alliance, and UW Mechanical Engineering professor Rolf Raetz. And we are talking about a conference coming up this week called Reinventing the Industrial Heartland, Supply Chain Sustainability and the New Automotive Industry. And so just to sort of broaden our vision here, I was reading within the last week or two, I think, a story that we probably have all grown up with over 30 years, but the potential for the driverless automobile, you know, some of the new experimentation that's taking place. I mean, are we getting to that point in the research, Professor, that something like that is actually in our lifetimes?
Well, actually, we had a very interesting symposium this summer, and one of Gary Smith, who's a manager at General Motors, gave a presentation in which he outlined that future, and it was actually kind of scary to watch his slides, because he had a movie that showed driverless or cars being driven by themselves, passing through an intersection at high speed and avoiding collisions and so on. So it really relies on computers, and I'm not sure that we're quite ready there yet. But it certainly makes a lot of sense to be looking at alternatives to automated driving.
That's the first. It's the first kind of aspect of that for me raised the question of the capacity of the computer, the capability of the computer, but also the capacity of the human individual to feel physically comfortable and emotionally comfortable in that kind of a situation. That's going to be a huge change.
Yes.
That's bigger than the Jetsons in my
But you know, there's probably things going on that we don't think about, like, for example, autopilot landing of planes, and we accept that without really thinking about it too much.
Yeah, good point. One of the speakers, Dr. Covington, is Richard Longworth, who wrote the book Caught in the Middle, and I've been very influenced by that book. But of course, he talks about the importance of regional economic development strategies with a global perspective. And really doesn't come right out and say it, but when you think about Madison and the University of Wisconsin and the research being done here and some of the physical and cultural aspects of this community, it raises the question of significant economic development here if partnerships like this with with the Bavarian government, with BMW. Does that, I mean, can you imagine that potential from your perspective?
Well, I would say that the very fact that this event is taking place next week is indicative of the very high interest of various groups in exploring these possibilities and these joint ventures. And I'm talking about the synergy between state government entities like the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation and the Department of Natural Resources and the university, along with the city of Madison, for example, to look and see what the possibilities are for developing industry in our region with expertise that's already here. I think a lot of this is exploiting things that already may be here and may not have made it to the top of the pile in terms of exploration. Yep,
good point. And then in terms of follow up on this, I mean, is there? Can you see what next steps would be?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that I know already of certain particular German-Wisconsin connections that are rapidly exploring, as we speak right now, sustainable and green development and mutual projects in that architectural realm, as well as projects on biofuel and bioenergy. There's another event towards the end of October that talks about biofuels. That is a Wisconsin German-American Chamber of Commerce joint exploration. So these things are happening all around us, and I think that maybe in the past there has been less attention paid to making sure that synergies that are there are taken advantage of. And that's where the American Council on Germany comes into play here. And its connection with the campus is that we are unable to bridge those gaps if we don't have things like the Center for German and European Studies on campus, which is able to be in contact with the ACG and then put those people in contact with the City of Madison and its projects on greening architecture.
Good point. We're going to put up the website here, Dr. Covington, and just so people can go there and get more information about the conference. The Thursday conference is by invitation. There's a specific group of people coming. But Friday morning, there's an event on campus that some people might be interested in going to. I think it's at the La Follette School, but if they go to the website, they could find out for sure.
Right, they'll find it. Yes, on Friday, there's a 4-hour roundtable, which will be put on the website. The video will be put up for people that can't attend, of course, on a Friday morning. That is hosted between the UW-Madison European Union Center of Excellence and the La Follette School of Public Affairs, which explores the future of the auto industry. And we'll have a panel of eminent specialists in this field, both from Germany, German major automakers, and Wisconsin Commerce Department officials, et cetera.
Thank you very much. We're going to come back and wrap up For the Record right after this. My thanks to Professor Raitz and Dr. Covington for coming in today. Thanks for watching For the Record. We'll see you next Sunday.